Hey everyone, it's Mark here from Right Base, and today we're going to take a closer look at last night's Royal Rumble 2019 pay-per-view event. So Royal Rumble was held in Chase Field Baseball Stadium in Phoenix, Arizona, with nearly 49,000 fans in attendance, and it promised to be a really big show with two major title matches, two women's title matches, a tag title match, and of course the two Royal Rumble matches themselves. So let's take a look at what worked, what may not have worked so well, and what we thought of the show as a whole. So to kick things off, we had Becky Lynch challenging Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I thought it was a really good opener, really physical battle between the two, and at one point Asuka hitting the swinging neckbreaker off the apron to Becky on the floor, which looked like it could have caused serious injury, but fortunately Becky was okay. I was surprised that Becky tapped out clean to the Asuka lock. Obviously Asuka's reputation is to be a submission-based killer, so really it helps to add to her credibility, especially given that her reputation took a bit of a nosedive for much of last year. But even so, with how hot Becky's character is right now, I was surprised. Not to the point that I'd consider it a majorly bad thing or anything like that, just surprised. But either way, Asuka winning keeps the title on air. At that point you're obviously thinking, is Becky out of the title picture, or more rather you're thinking, how's she now going to get into the Raw Women's title picture to face Ronda Rousey, which we'll talk about more in just a moment. Next up we had the SmackDown Tag Team title match with The Bar facing The Miz and Shane McMahon. It was a decent match, it served its purpose, which was to further the Miz-Shane storyline with them winning the tag team titles. Perhaps the biggest moment came after the bell with Miz and Shane celebrating with Miz's dad, with that being the focus of the storyline. The fact that Miz really wanted to impress his father, and teaming with Shane McMahon allowed him to do that. Then it was on to Ronda Rousey facing Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship. Again, I thought this was a really good match, and I don't understand why so many people are anti-Ronda or booing Ronda, because to say she's only been doing this for little under a year, she's so good at what she does, and with an opponent like Sasha, who's one of the very best female performers in WWE, he was basically guaranteed a great match, which is what we got here. Of course, in the end, Ronda retained the title. Again, it was clean, which less surprising than in the opener, but I still thought there might have been shenanigans. She tried to endorse Sasha after the match, although Banks gave her the four horsewomen signal, which may or may not be a sign of things to come. It's definitely a sign that we can probably expect the two to fight again at some point. But either way, a really good match, and I wasn't surprised at all that Ronda retained the title. I just wish people had not be booing so much when you consider she hasn't really done anything wrong. I think it's simply the fact that she's opposing Becky Lynch in the storyline that they're telling at the moment. So we move on now to the Women's Royal Rumble match itself, the second year in a row that the females have had this opportunity. If I'm being honest, I thought it was underwhelming, at least for the first two thirds. Maybe it was because there was no surprises from the past, with the main unexpected entrance coming from NXT. Definitely some memorable spots in this, with some interesting escapes from elimination and some exchanges that we didn't see coming. But either way, I felt up until the late stages of the match, it was pretty missable and forgettable, to be honest. Of course, what everyone will remember is the finishing sequence, Becky Lynch coming down to replace an injured Lana to take the final spot in the match, and showing enough heart and courage to perform, especially given that she was attacked again at ringside by Nia Jax just before the finish. It came down to Becky and Charlotte, which I think everyone expected, even before the Rumble when we didn't know for certain that Becky was going to be in the match. I was thinking that Charlotte might have won, because if she loses, how does she insert herself back into the Ronda situation? But obviously the crowd went wild for Becky winning. Lynch is now presumably going to choose to face Ronda at WrestleMania for the Raw Women's title. Whether Charlotte finds a way to insert herself into that match remains to be seen. But either way, this was definitely the high point of the night, and it made up for a Rumble match that up until Becky's involvement had been a little bit disappointing. With Becky winning the way that she did, it was definitely a feel-good moment and a positive for the show as a whole. From there, we had the WWE Championship match with Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. I don't know really how to sum up this match. I think it was well executed. I don't think there was anything wrong from a technical standpoint. I just feel like the crowd was drained from what they've just witnessed with Becky Lynch, so the atmosphere wasn't what it could have been. But at the same time, I don't think many people thought there was going to be a title change here either. I think it was clear that Bryan was retaining. The fact that Eric Rowan helped him to retain was a surprise, and presumably he's going to now be Bryan's new bodyguard going forward. Either way though, of the matches that we've seen Bryan and Styles have over the last few months, this was probably the least memorable. It certainly wasn't a bad match or anything to frown upon, just forgettable, just something that when we look back on this show in years to come, we probably won't remember this match too fondly, which is a shame because, as I mentioned a moment ago, I thought it was well executed. It just didn't have the desired atmosphere, and really there wasn't much to be excited about in terms of AJ possibly winning the title. After that, it was the Universal Championship match between Brock Lesnar and Finn Balor. Up until 2 weeks ago, Braun Strowman was supposed to be getting the title shot. Realistically, once they gave it to Balor, I didn't see Lesnar losing the title, simply because I couldn't see Balor winning the title and defending it at WrestleMania. But definitely Finn gave a great account of himself performance-wise, putting on one of his most memorable showings since joining WWE. In the end, of course, Lesnar retaining, on this occasion with the Kimura lock, although he pounded Finn afterwards with suplexes and an F5. I thought he told a really good story here with Balor managing to injure Lesnar's stomach and using that as his way to not only gain offense, but to avoid being taken to Suplex City over and over again. I'd be up for seeing a rematch between these two at some point, although I couldn't see Lesnar losing the title to Balor if it happens before WrestleMania. Either way though, a really good match, and it's proof once again that against the right opponent, Brock Lesnar can still add a lot to the WWE product. So the last match of the night was the Men's Royal Rumble match. This was kind of a reverse of the women's one in that I enjoyed the first two thirds more than the final section. There were a couple of surprises. Jeff Jarrett appearing at the beginning was something totally unexpected. Kurt Angle had a nice cameo, although it lasted a little too short for my liking, and also it had come later in the match, it might have had more meaning. There were quite a few appearances from NXT performers as well as the UK champion Pete Dunne. There were some really good spots throughout, whether it was avoiding eliminations or just some nice sequences between those involved. We also had some unexpected eliminations as well, which should boost the stock of some of the performers involved. Perhaps the most unexpected moment came right at the end, where our troupe was attacked by, of all people, Nia Jax, who then inserted herself into the Rumble match and got involved in some action before actually taking a series of finishes and being eliminated. Some people frown on this, looking at the idea that it's male on female attacks, but there's been a big social media outcry in recent times for intergender wrestling to return, so maybe this is the first step towards that, which if it is, as long as it's kept to such a level that we don't make it look too violent and it's too much of man on woman violence, it might not be too much of a bad thing. It was definitely a memorable Rumble moment that nobody saw coming, that's for sure. Seth Rollins won the Rumble match in the end, which wasn't a big surprise. If anything, he was probably the only logical candidate to win once Drew McIntyre was eliminated. Overall, I'd say it was a good Rumble, at times very good. It wasn't a classic Rumble match. It wasn't one that I'd say is up there with the best ever, but it definitely had its moments. And when looking back, I think we'll look back on this Rumble match fondly. So summing up Royal Rumble 2019 as a whole, I thought it was a pretty good show. Not one of the best Rumble events, but also definitely not one of the worst. The Rumble matches themselves, pretty similar. Maybe a shade inferior to what we got last year, but they had the winners that people were not only hoping to see, but kind of expecting logically in terms of storylines. And definitely Becky Lynch winning the Rumble for the women's division is going to go down as the most memorable moment of the night, and most likely setting up a showdown with Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, which, from what we're hearing, could be the main event of that Mania. So overall, I'd give it a thumbs up. Give it, say, 8 out of 10 overall. There was definitely moments that could be improved, but there wasn't a bad match on the main show. It was more a case of the crowd being disinterested at times for Bryan versus AJ, but otherwise, thought it was a pretty good show, and really can't complain. So that's my thoughts on Royal Rumble 2019. Let us know what you think in the comments section, and if you're looking for more wrestling content, check out our main website, which is www.rightbase.co.uk.